Hi, my name's Claire Miller. I'm the Green Councillor for Edinburgh City Centre Ward, and I'm making this video for the Scot Women Stands theme this month of understanding politics and democracy. And they've sent me a few prompt questions. I'm just going to talk off the top of my head on some of the questions that are on this prompt. So the first thing that they've suggested is talking about what issues are important to me and why. So I got into politics because I felt that it was important that more women got involved to campaign and make change at a local level. So I work in Edinburgh Council, and I felt that there was issues that could be done at council level that were important for us in terms of green politics. Things like so tackling climate change involves making local changes like transport and energy efficiency of buildings and so on. And so there's lots of local stuff which can be done that has an impact at a global level. And that's what motivated me to get involved in politics in the first place. And one of the other questions that they've asked us to cover when we make these videos and blogs is about role models. And actually, for me, I never intended to stand to be elected. I thought I would join the Green Party because I would maybe support others from behind the scenes. I'm usually somebody who's more comfortable and confident at sitting at a desk and doing research and supporting others. But I became encouraged to stand for office because I came in and shadowed the Green councillors, and I followed my now colleague Mel Main, who represents the Morningside ward, through some of the work that she was doing, and discovered that actually it was something which I definitely thought I could do. I could bring a lot of my skills to bear, and I think it's worth considering whether you might have thought about being in political office is I suppose my image of it was that it would be quite scary, that there would be a lot of public speaking required, and that you would be a target for people's vitriol. And to some extent that is true, but it's not as, it's not as prevalent as I thought it would be. I think you can manage the way that you do your political job in a way that suits you and suits your character. So while there are some elements of public speaking, actually at council meetings, I don't find it too difficult anymore. I think the first year I found quite stressful while I got used to it, but it's very doable for people like me who are not as confident at doing that sort of thing. And having a bit of resilience is important, but actually more important is maybe building your rules around how you're going to engage with people. If you if you open yourself up to that sort of social media free-for-all, then you'll probably get attacked, but actually you can manage your social media presence in a way that means that it's meaningful and helpful to your residents, but you don't get involved in flame wars and people trolling you. I have only received a few sort of properly negative messages, and certainly nothing scary, and that's, I think, down to the fact that I use my social media to communicate with people, but I don't really use it to get into debates about my politics. I don't think that necessarily wins people over, so I just don't do that. So I was inspired to stand by Mel because I could see that she was making a difference in the council, and that it was something that I could see myself doing. Because actually, it's good to have an inquiring mind, the ability to ask questions, the ability to go and talk to people, find out how to make changes that will start to take you towards your goals, and work incrementally on things. And that's the sort of stuff which I was quite good at doing already in business. I came from a business background, and so I've been able to apply those skills into my work here as a councillor quite successfully. And so they've also asked what further systems of support and platforms would I like to see. I think that's a really important question because I think that women standing for elected office, there are so many barriers in the way of women standing, And I think that there's got to be a lot of change made in the way that council works before it's a really accessible place for women to think that it's a good place to work and that it's an easy place to work once you get elected and find yourself here. Here I am in my office, and as you can see, it's not very tidy, but this is where I do most of my work. And unfortunately, some of the technology that I've got available to me can be a bit flaky, and it means then that although I would like to work from home quite often, I find myself here, even if I could really be doing things from home, it's sometimes easier just to come in. But we do have the flexibility that we can set our own timetables, we can decide where we're going to work and what time we're going to work, which is really helpful because then you can fit it around other responsibilities. And I think, although I don't have childcare commitments, I can see that that is something which it's possible to do. But there are problems. There's quite a lot of open-ended in terms of time commitments, committee meetings. So a committee meeting will have an agenda and it'll have a definite start time obviously, but it doesn't have a definite end time. And so you don't know what time you're going to be finished that committee meeting. An experience can show you how long you might estimate it to take, but you don't actually know what time you're going to get out of there. And that can be quite difficult. I think there's a range of issues. I mean, it's just not a very forgiving environment, I suppose, as well. I think if you're happy with the cut and thrust of debating with people, then it's okay. But it can be quite challenging to fight for what you want and stand up for the things that you're looking for. But then that can be what's rewarding about it as well. I find it quite rewarding when I manage to achieve something. I feel really that it's much more of an achievement than if I hadn't had to battle for such a thing. So it's good from that point of view. But there are so many things that we do need to change. So one of the positive steps I've been making is I've joined a working group in COSLA. So COSLA is like the organisation of all of the different local authorities in Scotland. And we had a conference last year with women from all of the local authorities to identify different ways in which we can bring down barriers to elected office. Because I see quite a lot of women, well, I certainly met a lot that day, who were elected in 2017, the same as me, who are now thinking that they might not stand for election again. And I know that some of my friends in this council are considering the same, are thinking about standing down. And actually, it's a shame because it takes a little while to get into the job, to get your network of contacts in the council and to get your feet under the desk and start to make a difference in the work that you're doing. So either we need to make it easier to do that and quicker to do that, or we need to make it more attractive for women to stand for more than one term of office. But I would quite like to make it easier to get started, because I think then people would be more likely to take 4 or 5 years sort of sabbatical, I guess, or leave from their work or work part-time to come and do an elected role like this and then go back to their professional role again. Whereas I think that the fact that it's quite, I guess, time-consuming to get started means that women are either put off from doing it, or you end up with career politicians who stay for a very long time, and perhaps that's not the best model. I think it might be better if we had women coming in from professions, spending 4 to 5 years, depending on the electoral term, doing the job and then moving back to their role as a professional, or as a parent or a carer or whatever role that they're then moving on to. That'd be my preference. And I think that the other barrier really, when you think about that, is that being elected is very digital. You're either elected or you're not, and you spend a lot of time campaigning for an election in the run-up to it. So if you're elected, then hurrah, then you're in office. But if you're not elected and you haven't lined up work, or if you're not sure what direction you're going to take, if you've been elected and you're looking to be re-elected and then you're not and you're unsuccessful, that can be quite difficult to deal with work-wise. And we should talk about the fact that financially it's again, it's very digital, you're either elected or not, but if you're not in administration, you're not well paid. So as an opposition councillor, I'm paid less than £17,000, and that's because the salary is prorated to be a part-time role. And actually, realistically, if I was to do all my committee work and all my casework and all my party work and everything that I do in this role and add it up, it would definitely not come to part-time hours. So really the pay is very unrealistic for what we do. But if you're in administration, if you're the ruling party, there are senior councillor allowances, and those are divided up between the different conveners and the people who've got different roles, such as the Lord Provost. And so those roles are reasonably well paid, and on a par with a professional role. So it can be perfectly well paid, or it can be really, really badly paid. And it's, you know, there's a big disparity between the two. But actually, as an opposition councillor, I do a lot of work for a very small amount of money, and we don't have you know, a lot of expenses either, so it's not as if I'm claiming, you know, any additional money at all. I'm not. My one claim is for a bus pass, so I can go around to different meetings in the ward. So yeah, there are a lot of barriers. I'm not going to mince words, but we are working on them through that COSLA working group. It's about all barriers to all different groups who have got protected characteristics. So it's not just access for women, it's also access for people of different disabilities or differently abled people, different genders and sexualities, etc. So it's intersectional, hopefully, and it's also looking at other issues, not just women's issues, which is really important. One of the things which I'm quite disappointed about in the council that I'm in Edinburgh is that we're not gender balanced. Some of the political groups are. We are lucky in the Greens that we managed through our gender balancing mechanisms to get a 50-50 gender balanced group elected. But, you know, even if you stand 50-50 in your candidates, you might not manage to elect a 50-50 group. So we're fortunate, and I'm aware of that, and I know that that wasn't necessarily going to be the outcome under every circumstance. But it would be lovely to see a council in the future that did genuinely reflect society. We're very poor at doing that in Scotland. Our parliament and our councils aren't gender balanced, and nor do they reflect all the other different characteristics, ethnicity and so on, are poorly reflected. So let's end on a positive. It says here, what words of support and guidance do you have for fellow women of Scotland? I would say jump in. Like, genuinely contact a councillor who you admire, or contact an MSP who you admire and think highly of if you've seen them speaking, or if you've seen them an article in the press that you thought that they presented a point of view that you know that resonated with you. Get in touch with them, ask if they've got any opportunities to come in and shadow them, or to volunteer to help with any of their work, because that's the best way to get started. I found that to be really helpful. You find out exactly what the job is like. I would recommend it, even if then you don't decide to stand as a politician, because it's just a really interesting experience, and you get to understand what it is that we do, and you'll get a richer flavour for the kind of work that we do. I mean, my work is incredibly varied. Last week we had a meeting of full council, and I made several contributions to different debates, some of which I won, some of which I did not win. So it can be, you know, quite dramatic at council, and sometimes you can come away from it feeling very good and sometimes not so good, like last week. But some of the other things that I was doing in the last couple of weeks were, you know, I met the Director General of the National Galleries to talk about some of their strategic plans. I went on a visit to Edinburgh College because I'm working on a project which is called Granton Waterfront, where there's a big development site, and they are currently in the middle of that location, so they're going to be a very important partner there. I went on a walkabout with some residents in an area in the city centre where they're having trouble with cars parking on the pavement. I had a surgery meeting in the evening, and I went to a residents association meeting. So I did lots of varied work, and I think you only really get a sense for the kind of variety and the interesting stuff that we do if you really just spend some time with a councillor or an MSP to find out what kind of stuff they're doing. and there's lots of support roles as well, which, you know, again, if you look at it and think, oh no, that's not for me, there's lots of jobs that sit either with the parties, so they will advertise for lots of different roles, or there's jobs working for the Parliament or the Council where you're supporting the politicians to do their jobs, and we could not do our roles without those people. They are really valuable to us, and they provide us with you know, really important support, and it's again a great way to make sure that you're doing something that serves the community. So I hope that was interesting. A little bit of a ramble, a bit unprepared, but probably a little bit more genuine for that. So I hope you enjoyed it.